It's time now to discuss an extremely important topic when it comes to working with a relational database, and that's referential integrity. Now, in the previous lesson, we set up relationships between our tables in our database. We see those relationships now as one-to-many relationships. We see the primary keys in each of the tables. But let's talk about a scenario that could happen. Let's say we gave away an album and we no longer have that album in our library. So we delete the album from the album table, knowing that there are songs in the song table that reference an album ID now that no longer exists. What happens to those records? Well, without enforcing referential integrity, we would have what's called orphans. We'd have a number of songs with an album ID that can't be found in the album table. Now, by enforcing referential integrity, a little checkbox that we ticked off in the previous lesson, we'll look at it again in a second, we're making sure that we can't let that happen. Orphans won't exist as long as we're enforcing referential integrity. So that's going to mean that we can't change the primary key for an album ID, and we can't even delete it. But let's say we gave away an album, or we sold it, for example, and it no longer exists in our library. We want to be able to delete it. And in those cases, we want some kind of update to happen here in the songs table. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So take a look at my title bar. I'm using the Music Library 5B database. So if you're jumping to this lesson, you can go into your Lesson 5 folder, the exercise files, and open it up. We created the relationship in the previous lesson by just simply clicking and dragging the primary key over on top of the foreign key in the related table. And now we're going to talk about enforcing that referential integrity. So that's going to mean editing our relationships. To do that, we click on the connector between the two tables. You can see it's highlighted. And we can go up here and click Edit Relationships to bring up the Edit Relationships dialog box. So in the previous lesson, we did check off Enforce Referential Integrity. So by doing that, we knew we would not have unrelated records in the related table. But here are the other two options I want to talk to you about. What if we change the primary key? I'm going to move this over. Let's say over here in the album ID, we want to change the actual ID for one of our albums. Well, we would want those IDs in the related table, the songs table here, to get updated for us automatically so that they continue to match each other. Well, then we would check off this checkbox here that says Cascade Update Related Fields. Now, what happens if we sold one of the albums in our collection and it no longer exists? So we're deleting an album ID. That means we might have a number of songs referencing an album ID that no longer exists. We can't have that because we're enforcing referential integrity, but what we can do is have Access automatically delete all of the songs in our songs table that reference that album ID that's been removed. And that's this checkbox here, Cascade Delete Related Records. So with those two checked off, we can click OK and know that we'll always have valid data. Let's go over to this one now. I'm going to click on the relationship between performers and songs. Another way to edit relationships, a little shortcut, is just to double-click the connector. So double-clicking brings up the Edit Relationships dialog box for these two tables. You can see performers and songs. Now, we also enforced referential integrity in the previous lesson for these two tables. What do we want to happen if we remove a performer from the performers list? Do we want those performer IDs to be deleted as well in the songs table? Well, yeah, we do. So we're going to click this checkbox here. If we change a performer's ID, we also want it updated in the related table. So we'll check off this box as well. And we'll click OK. All right, we should save those changes. So clicking the Save button will update our tables, their relationships. And now we can feel confident knowing that if we change an ID in one table, it'll change in the related table. If we remove one from the primary table, they will all be removed from the secondary or the related table as well, all thanks to something called referential integrity.